The Lost World Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3 were both set on Isla Sorna, and whether or not you rate Jurassic Park 3, personally I like it, it did introduce us to one of the most iconic dinosaurs of all time, that being the Spinosaurus, not to mention one of the most controversial ones. I mean, we outright see the Spinosaurus murder a T-Rex, leading me to think, did it do the same thing to the named Tyrannosaurus's back and doe, which we see in the Lost World Jurassic Park? Many people seemingly forget that both dinosaurs were present on Isla Sorna, potentially at the same time. This left many people confused. Firstly, where was the Spinosaurus during the Lost World Jurassic Park? And did it ever come into contact with the buck and doe? If it did, what happened to them? I mean, the Spinosaurus is one of the most aggressive dinosaurs we've ever seen on screen, and super destructive, so it's hard to believe that Spinosaurus would have simply left the buck and doe to their own devices. Well, fear not, my friends, as we're going to solve that mystery today. Now, one of the many common answers is the fact that both movies are set on different parts of the island. Now, Isla Sorna is an absolutely massive island, so it is feasible that it could have different biomes and different locations within it. Hence why people say we never see the Spinosaurus, because the island is so large and they're set in different places. But that's not entirely true. Both movies show massively different landscapes, whereas the Lost World Jurassic Park shows redwood forests and Jurassic Park 3 show lush green jungles. The Lost Worlds event is supposed to be set in the northeastern part of the island, whereas Jurassic Park 3's events are meant to be set in the southwestern part of the island. But that doesn't answer the question of how the biomes are so diversely different. One theory is that the northern part of the island has a rocky mountainous terrain, which stops all the clouds and moisture traveling to the southern part of the island, which would create obviously different biomes, ecosystems and fauna. But it still doesn't explain why we do not see the Spinosaurus in the Lost World Jurassic Park, especially as the Spinosaurus would be roaming the island in search of prey. Now, we do see the Tyrannosaurus family in the Lost World Jurassic Park, and they are on the southern part of the island. So could it be that the territory of the Tyrannosaurus is in the southern part and the Spinosaurus is in the northern part? Well, I don't believe that to be the case either, because in Jurassic Park 3, we see that controversial scene where a Tyrannosaur is in the Spinosaurus area. So that rules out the Spinosaurus having its own territory or the Tyrannosaurus, because they're in each other's territories, clearly roaming around. Now, any normal apex predator would avoid each other for fear of injury or death. It's simply not worth it. But the Spinosaurus, on the other hand, actively hunts out other apexes, which leads into the theory that the Spinosaurus was the first hybrid. Now, not only is this a theory, there's also proof to back this up, whereas Henry Wu actually says he leaves something behind on Isla Sorna, and I've covered this in previous videos that the Spinosaurus is indeed the first hybrid. Now, why would Henry Wu be on Isla Sorna, and how does that filter into the Spinosaurus? And was it actually on Isla Sorna during the events of the 1997 film The Lost World Jurassic Park? Now, with the Spinosaurus actively looking out other apexes, why would it not be seen in the Lost World Jurassic Park tracking down the T-Rex family? Now, arguably, watching that film, it's evident there is no mention or even thought of a Spinosaurus being on the island at that time. Now, I would like to point out the fact that obviously Jurassic Park 2 was made before Jurassic Park 3, and the Spinosaurus was only intended to be used in Jurassic Park 3. But to simply ignore the fact that it's in Jurassic Park 3 on the same island and isn't mentioned now in the lore in Jurassic Park 2 is simply insane. Now, one factor is obviously the age of the Spinosaurus and how that will play into the both movies, as there is a possibility that the Spinosaurus was never on Isla Sorna during 1997 in the first place. And having looked into the lore thoroughly, going through Masrani's back door, I have found out some crucial information. Now, the Lost World Jurassic Park was set in 1997 and Jurassic Park 3 was set in 2001. Now, Masrani Global purchases InGen in 1998, and shortly after 1998, a group of scientists embark on the island to conduct illegal experiments with illegal dinosaurs. These dinosaurs included an Ankylosaurus, a Ceratosaurus, a Spinosaurus, and one other genus. This shows us that in actual fact, they didn't commence actually cloning a Spinosaurus until at least 1998, 1 year after the events of the Lost World Jurassic Park in 1997. Although there is a huge problem with this. There is a shooting script for Jurassic Park 3, and provides us evidence to show that the Lost World Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3 were set in exactly the same location, which completely kills the theory of the Spinosaurus and Tyrannosauruses set in different locations. And here is the evidence. During Alan Grant's journey through the InGen compound going to the embryonics lab, they pass a destroyed vehicle with the window smashed out, which is explicitly referred to as the one from the Lost World Jurassic Park, with Dr. Ian Malcolm inside being attacked by the raptor. And the exact words are as follows: "A troubled Grant peers through a windshield partially caved in, like something giant head-butted the glass. Think back to the Lost World." Now, we all know that Jurassic Park 3 had a terrible production and was rushed, and they were still writing the story as it was being filmed. So it is possible that they decided to change locations, but it does show here from this script that they were intended to be in exactly the same location, which would completely destroy the fact that the Spinosaurus was in the north and the Tyrannosaurus was in the south. Thus, we can conclude that during that time in the Lost World Jurassic Park, there was no Spinosaurus on the island, and that is because of Project Regenesis. Now, I talk about Project Regenesis in a different video which you can watch here, but basically what it means is, in a nutshell, the Spinosaurus was never created until at least 1998. Which is directly 1 year after the event of 1997. Now, this evidence is found directly on Masrani Global's website, Masrani Backdoor, and you can go and see all that information for yourself. There were also other subtle hints, such as a deleted scene in Jurassic Park 3, where Grant comes into contact with Eric Kirby inside of his little base/trailer, and Eric Kirby was going to give him the original cattle prod from Dieter Stark when he was killed with compies in the Lost World. This would imply that they've traversed the same ground as they did in the Lost World Jurassic Park. Personally, I would have loved for these little nods to have been included in Jurassic Park 3, and whether or not the Spinosaurus was or was on there during that time doesn't really make a difference to me, because I would have loved to have seen these little nods. That obviously confidently explains why the Spinosaurus was missing in the 1997 film, but that doesn't mean the Tyrannosaurus pair are going to be missing in the 2001 film. There is absolutely no indication that that Tyrannosaurus pair ever left the island before the events of the Spinosaurus, and it's highly likely they did come into contact with that Spinosaurus. We know from Jurassic Park 3 that there'd be at least several months where that Spinosaurus was left on the island to its own devices, hence how it comes into contact with the other Tyrannosaurus. The likelihood is it would have already have met Buck and Doe, fought, and potentially have lost, believe it or not. How do I know this? Well, we know Buck and Doe are still alive and are seen at the end of the events of Jurassic World Dominion. That's the pair of them on the screen right there. That obviously tells us that if they did encounter each other, they clearly survived. But how do I know they actually would have bumped into each other to have that fight? Well, I've already explained the territory fiasco. They would have been in the same territory and would have met. But I know what you're thinking, how would I have known the Spinosaurus would have lost that encounter? Well, we do actually see the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3 in Camp Cretaceous Season 4 and 5, and coincidentally faces off against two T-Rexes, and in this instance does actually lose the fight, meaning the same thing could have happened previously when it encountered the Buck and Doe pair. But is there any evidence to actually suggest that they encountered each other? Well, looking at it logically, the Spinosaurus actually gets removed from Isla Sorna sometime after the events of Jurassic Park 3. We know this because it ends up on the Manticore Island in 2016. The likelihood is it would have been poached off of Isla Sorna at some point between 2001 and 2006. Why that specific period? Well, at that point, Masrani Global were also on that island removing the dinosaurs for their park. So it'd be highly unlikely any poachers would have been on that island because they would have been discovered by Masrani Global personnel. That means then if it didn't encounter the Buck and Doe before 2001, it would still have a good few years to do so after the events of Jurassic Park 3, and I find it highly unlikely that apex predators like that wouldn't have come into contact, especially with the Spinosaurus actively hunting out other apexes. The super aggressiveness of that animal, seen in various instances, is just not feasible. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility that they didn't meet, I just don't think it to have been possible. I think they did meet, and Buck and Doe did fend off the Spinosaurus. And the likelihood is, because they had young, I mean they had junior, right? Buck and Doe would have fought tooth and nail, even more so, to keep their young safe. There is no way the two Rexes would have let that Spinosaurus anywhere near their young. They would have fought to the death. And that Spinosaurus, I don't think would have even took the chance against 2 fully grown adult Tyrannosauruses. Sorry, I mean Tyrannosaur. And with that, I think that confidently explains, did the Spinosaurus ever meet buck and doe? But what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section below. I read every single comment. Would you also like to know what was in Jurassic World's restricted section? Why didn't the Indominus Rex attack Toro? What was in the pitch black lagoon? All these answers are on my channel and I highly recommend checking them out if you haven't done so already. Massive thanks to our Jurassic Park YouTube members who are on screen now, DVM Wannabe 1018, Hammer Time, and our Jurassic CEO Joseph Frost Ghost. I'd also like to highlight Celote and Petersaurus Rex, who've been members for 46 months, and Deadshot Ends, who's been a member for 20 months. Thank you very much, guys. And if you want to get your name and a shout out in the video, consider becoming a member. And if you ran into the Spinosaurus on Isla Sorna, could your day get any worse? You bet Jurassic can. Catch you later.